Hey, this is a Richard Sherman podcast brought to you by SuperDraft Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Caesar Rewards. To all my PFF listeners, it's time to get hooked up when you play. Get a $10 bonus when you deposit 10 by using the code PFF at registration. Just download SuperDraft and start playing games like Super 15. Get your hands on some cash prizes, Caesar Rewards credits, and more. We're even hooking you up with free PFF Elite subscription when you sign up. Just download the SuperDraft app on Apple or Play Store. Use the code PFF when you create an account, deposit $10, and get a free PFF Elite subscription. The offer is only eligible for new accounts. SuperDraft paid fantasy contests are available in 34 states. Must be 18 or older to play. Paid contests in most states. Visit superdraft.io for all eligibility restrictions.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. Don't you ever talk about me.
Picked off. It is Richard Sherman. It's picked off by Sherman. Now, buckle up. Here he goes. And it is intercepted by Richard Sherman. Broken up. Picked off. This game is over.
All right, welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast. Another week. We've had some breaking news this week, Mitchell. I got to break Bobby Wagner to the Rams, which broke a lot of Seahawks fans' hearts. It probably frustrated some of the NFC West to know that he's staying in the conference, but it made me really happy. Really happy for my friend. Negotiated over $100 million worth of contracts himself. Nothing like it.
Man, that's first and foremost, that is amazing for Bobby. It's funny, man, because a bunch of people were texting me too. Oh, he's going to Dallas. He's doing this, and this. I'm like, I just bit my tongue. I'm like, he's definitely not going to Dallas. You know, this is all just smoke and mirrors at this point. But yeah, man, that is awesome. I got to ask, Rich, how does it feel to be on the other side of the fence? You're the one breaking the news.
It felt crazy because you got to wait for all the details. You know, the Baltimore Ravens were in all the way until the umpteenth hour, to the last hour, to the 11th hour. And they really made a strong offer to him at the end, you know, but I think just being close to home and being comfortable in the NFC West and, you know, there's a little bit of bitterness there, you know what I mean? Playing,
sure.
You know, about what happened in Seattle, you know, obviously he feels great about the city and will make that his home forever, but, you know, it was wrong how they did him. And, you know, you expect better for franchise legends and he wasn't. So, you know, there was all those factors in there, and I think he made the best decision for him and his family, and he gets to play in LA, play at home, you know, for the first time, and that's a really cool story.
Richard, how much, I mean, obviously you did the same thing. I guess similar, you know, scenario with Bobby. Obviously you had the injury and they cut you prior to camp, but you know, you decided to go to the 49ers, and I'll never forget where I was when you texted me, I'm going to the 49ers. And I'm like, Richard, are you freaking crazy? Like that, this is arch enemy, division rival. Here we are. And, you know, the Rams are in that same category. Everyone hates the Rams. I remember you knocking the living heck out of Jared Goff years ago. And if you wouldn't have got him, Cam would have killed him. But, you know, and those were the rivalries. So you went to the 49ers. He goes to the Rams. I guess put yourself as a 12th man right now. Like, what do you think's going through the 12th man right now?
I can't imagine. I really can't imagine. You know, I mean, I don't think they could have ever envisioned a time in the franchise where you cut Bobby Wagner after a Pro Bowl season, you trade Russell Wilson away, you know, but he obviously had conversations and, you know, made his list of teams that, you know, preferred destinations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I think they were a little bit more prepared for Russell to be leaving than Bobby. You know, you hear the whispers about the cap charge being pretty high. I think it was $21 million this year. But, you know, for most teams, you can say, hey, we'll put some voidable years because we want to keep this guy. This guy means a lot to our franchise. And especially after you trade Russell Wilson, you're not cap strapped at all. You know, you're not worried about, hey, you're going to have to pay the quarterback $35 million for the next couple of years, $40 million, et cetera, et cetera. So you think, okay, you still have this veteran leader, Pro Bowler, all pro, one of the best in franchise history. You would expect them to maneuver. And other teams have been able to do that. Other teams have been able to, you know, you see what the Rams doing. Everybody's like, the salary cap doesn't exist because the Rams keep signing person after person after person. Because if you want to keep a team together, you can do it if you want to keep a team together. But what the Seahawks fans are finding out is that these players that left kind of disgruntled had a fair gripe, because you made the sacrifices, you played hard, you did everything you're supposed to do, and they're like, hey, why didn't you take a pay cut? It's like, well, they were never asked to. There was never a conversation. The conversations were at the closing. The conversations were, hey, we were going to cut you during free agency after we found a replacement, but hey, since you came up here to have the conversation, I guess we'll just cut you before free agency. Do you a favor. It's like, wait, okay, I didn't know we were getting cut in the first place, but all right, cool. Thanks for telling me, and I'd like you to just cut me down. We do it this way, and so that's the part where you're like, hey, at what point? Who do you do? Like, who are they going to treat like a franchise letter? Who are you going to treat good? Who's going to go out great? Who's going to go out and be like, hey, they did him really right. They really treated him. The Seahawks treated him fantastic. Like, who are you going to? Maybe T. Lockett? That's going to be the guy that you let
right
go out the way he should.
Bobby just screams Ray Lewis to me, man. I always thought he was going to be, a Seattle Seahawk for life, and I was dumbfounded and shocked to hear that, they were cutting him in the first place. But what does he bring to the Rams? I mean, you couple him now, you got a stellar middle linebacker behind probably the best player in football in Aaron Donald. What does this do for Bobby? How much better, how much can he elevate his game playing behind somebody like Aaron Donald?
Oh man, it's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be incredible for both of them. Aaron Donald is obviously who he is. 8-time Pro Bowler, 8-time or 7-time All-Pro. But Bobby's, he has 3 Defensive Player of the Years. But Bobby, his credentials is nothing to sniff at. He does a great job getting off of blocks. He does a great job covering the special routes. He makes them a lot more versatile on defense, a lot more dynamic. I think linebacker was one of their biggest weaknesses for years, and they were still able to win the Super Bowl. And I think he eliminates one of those weaknesses. Obviously, losing Von Miller and that pass rush ability is something they're gonna miss, but I'm sure they're gonna find a way to draft a guy and try to get some kind of production. Obviously not Von Miller level production, but some kind of pressure on the quarterback. But what Bobby brings in terms of leadership and poise and experience, I mean, you just can't you can't quantify with numbers.
He signed a 5-year, $50 million deal that could be worth upwards of $65 million. What does he have to do to earn that additional $15 million, and how obtainable is that for him?
Well, I mean, I'd have to go look through it because I didn't get too deep into that. We talked about the guarantees. We talked about some of the roster bonuses and things and some of the deferral language. But I think at the end of the day, it was more of trying to get his guarantee, the first 2-year guarantees, and having the language that if they cut him, he would still get his money, or another team would have to match that money in order for the Rams not to have to pay it. And so those are the important things to him, and those are the things that he was able to get. But I'm sure there's some All-Pro, Pro Bowl, play time, per game incentives, et cetera, tackles, things like that. But I mean, it's a great deal for both sides, and I think it's flexibility. Both sides could get out. The cap will continue to increase, and it'll look like a bargain soon.
As a fellow player agent, I mean, how would you grade this deal?
I would grade it A. Because it's where he wanted to go. You know what I mean? It's a great fit. It's great for the player. It's literally a championship team, the reigning Super Bowl champ. So it's hard to say he could have gotten a better situation. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are a really talented team. But they have their problems, they have their flaws, and I don't think they're a middle linebacker away from winning a Super Bowl. And so I think for everything he wanted to accomplish and everything the Rams wanted to accomplish, they wanted to fix a hole in their defense, to get an established leader, another freaking high caliber quality player and a quality person. And so I think it's an A+ on both sides.
Richard, Vegas just released the most recent odds, the over-under win totals for the season. And, to no shock, really, the Tampa Bay Bucks are at the top of the list, 11.5 wins. But I want to take a look at the NFC West right now, because I think that is going to be an absolute gauntlet with at least the first 2 teams. They pencil the Rams in at 10.5, over under 10.5 wins. The Niners at 10, the Cards at 9, and the Seahawks at 6. given those totals, what do you see?
I think it's high for the Cardinals, honestly. I think Kyler had a really good year. I thought they called the game fantastic at the beginning of the year. But I think it's one of those things that the league is starting to catch up to, and they caught up to it at the end. They struggled all the way down the stretch, probably the last 5 or 6 games. And I don't expect that to change. The tape, unless they come up with different concepts and different ways to manipulate the defense. But Kyler running around and thinking you're just going to quick pass these people, the league catches up to you every time. And it's about evolving. And I don't think the Cardinals were able to evolve last year. So I think it's going to be tough with the 49ers and the Rams. I think they're going to be great teams. They obviously run similar schemes, really talented, uberly talented, 2 of the most talented teams in the league. Outside of Tampa Bay and Buffalo, and obviously Kansas City. But I think those are you too. I don't know if it's a gauntlet like it used to be. I don't know if it's, because it used to be the Cardinals could be in play. The Rams are always in contention. The 49ers are in contention. I mean, you've had in the last decade or so, you've had every team but the Cardinals from the NFC West go to the Super Bowl, and a couple of the teams go twice. You've had the 49ers go twice. You've had the Rams go twice. You had Seattle go twice. And so I think it's always been a strong conference, but I think the Rams and the 49ers are obviously the class, and I would expect both of them to go over 11 wins, with the talent they have.
Sure. Let's stick with the 49ers here. There was interesting news, I guess, in the Jimmy Garoppolo world. I don't know how much is truth and not, but there was reports that the Niners had received a solid offer for him, but we're waiting for a better one. And now Kyle Shanahan's saying that there's a possibility he might still be on the roster this year. I mean, what do you think happens with Jimmy G going forward? Do the 49ers truthfully get what they want, or are they kind of putting themselves against, putting their backs to the wall with having Trey Lance already there?
I don't think they're pressed. I don't think they're pressed. I think that's a positive problem to have. I think, having 2 good quarterbacks is better than having none. And I think that's the way they see it. I think the season's a long season. It's a grind, and teams run into situations where you need a quarterback, where, hey, somebody got banged up. And I think instead of cutting him and getting no value for him, I think they're willing to wait and be patient and maybe find some value during the season. I don't think he's going to be on the roster next year. Obviously, this is the last year of his contract, but I think they're not going to just let him walk away and get no value out of him. Jimmy has played really good football for him, took him to a Super Bowl and to 2 NFC championships. And regardless of, some people think he's, terrible. Some people think he's great. But I don't think that I don't think that the 49ers expected to be in this situation, but they're okay with it. And I think they've been transparent. I think they've been communicating to the best of their abilities. I think we can't trust the rumor mill, especially in the off season, because you got to sell headlines. So you can literally make up anything and say, hey, sources say that this is happening, until the team comes out and disputes it. And who wants to come out and dispute every single thing that's going on? Sometimes it helps them. Sometimes it helps heat up the market. If you say, hey, we're getting a second rounder out there for him. Maybe they put out the rumor. I don't know. But
I would assume they did.
Right.
But Richard, if there's any professional out there that is carbon fit for this role and will accept it like a professional, I feel like it's probably Jimmy G. I mean, we look in Cleveland, where now Baker Mayfield is taking the back seat to Deshaun Watson, and he's not taking it very well. The Browns want a first-round pick. That's not going to happen. What do you think of Baker's game? Where do you think is the best fit for him? And what do you think the Browns can realistically get for him?
I'm not a huge fan of Baker's game. I think he's been rated right where he's supposed to be, and I can't say he's underrated or overrated. I think people see him as exactly what he is. I think in his best year he was pretty good, and every other year he's been average. And I think that's been the problem with Cleveland. I mean, they've made every excuse in the world for him, but they've had a top 5 O-line. They've had 2 great Pro Bowl receivers. They've had a top running back for at least the past 3-4 years. Their defense has been top 10, and you look up and they're still not having the success you expect them to have with all those things. And you can plug in 10 other quarterbacks and have a different amount of success with those things. You know, I would expect them to go to the Super Bowl or go at least further in the playoffs if a couple of those years. You got Odell, you got Jarvis Landry, you got a really athletic tight end, you got a great running game. I mean, you can't ask for much more in this league. And he had all those things. So you run into situations sometimes where you're like, man, the quarterback didn't get surrounded by enough talent, or he didn't get help. And you can't say that about Baker Mayfield. He got all the help in the world. You got the O-line, you got the run game, you got the receivers, you got the tight end. Like, you got a defense that's top 10. What else can you ask for? Like, do your part. And for you to have gripes like you played all-pro Pro Bowl football and they just decided to replace you out of nowhere, I mean, I hear you, but I don't hear you.
What's amazing to me, Richard, is just as like an ordinary fan watching the Cleveland Browns. Like, you watch guys, I grew up watching guys like Brett Favre and, you know, obviously the early stages of Aaron Donald, and you compare him against, you know, some of the quarterbacks out of Detroit, which was like Scott Mitchell and all these like random guys that just carouseled in and out. The ones that are great make the receivers around them so much better, right? I mean, with Brett Favre, he was thrown to like Bill Schrader, and no one knew who he was, but the guy was like a pretty legit wide receiver. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers, elevating all these guys' games. And that's where, to me, what stands out most about Baker is, to your point, I'm questioning, and we both maybe I question more than you because you backed him up, but I thought something was wrong with Odell, you know? And then he goes to LA and he's just back to his normal self. It's amazing to me that Baker Mayfield can be surrounded with so much talent. Like, you hit the nail on the head. They got Nick Chubb, they got Kareem Hunt, they got solid tight ends. They have, you know, a couple really solid wide receivers. And for Odell to be misutilized so much, it just screams that something is wrong there. So obviously the Browns identified it and they went in a different direction.
And I think the rest of the league sees it. I mean, the rest of the league, that's why you're not getting like it. You wanted a first round pick for him. You wanted a second round pick for him. You better hope to get a stale bag of Lay's for him. Like, nobody's going to wait. Nobody's going to wait for Baker Mayfield. Nobody's sitting there like, hey, Baker Mayfield, like, he's going to take us over the top. Nobody's thinking that. Like, maybe he can have a resurgence and turn his career around. Like, cool. Okay. But when people look at your tape and see the talent that you were surrounded with and what you were able to do with it, people aren't saying like, hey, come to our team and take us to the top, because you had all the weapons and all the everything around you, and you didn't take them to the top. So it's like, what do you need? You know, they blamed everybody but him for so long. They blamed the offensive coordinator. They blamed the head coach. They blamed the receivers. They blamed everything else. And it's like, but then they finally got to the root of the problem. Let's see how Deshaun Watson does there.
Where do you think Baker ends up realistically? I mean, is there a shot that he might go to Seattle? They certainly are in the market for a quarterback. Houston?
I think they're plan E. You know what I mean? That's deep down their plans. I think Seattle's plan, honestly, and this is just me spitballing and guessing based off the scenario, I think this is a waste year for Seattle. I think this is a waste year. I think they're going to look at the quarterbacks next year. I think they're a really good, what people will consider generational talents coming out next year. The kid from Bama, the kid from Ohio State, Bryce Young, and
CJ Stroud.
I think they feel real high. They're really high on those quarterbacks. And I think they expect those guys to be around and take the franchise where they expect it to be, instead of just drafting a guy this year to say, hey, you know, we had to draft a quarterback. You know, hey, we had to get one in the first round. You know, I think they're going to do what they can this year to get 7-8 wins. You know what I mean? They're not going to throw the season away in that way. But I think they're putting all their eggs in the basket for next year to get one of those guys to really keep their franchise where it's supposed to be.
Next year's draft class at quarterback is certainly looking like a good one. This year's draft class at quarterback, not so much. They're saying it was the worst draft class at the quarterback position since I believe it was when Christian Pounder got drafted first. And
that was my draft class.
That was your draft class? Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, I
think it was maybe my next one, because we had Jake Locker, we had Blaine Gabbert,
studs.
Yeah. I think we had those are our first rounders. Cam went 2, but where did Ponder go? Ponder might have been right after us, maybe 12 then, 11. Or 12.
Well, maybe I'm thinking the EJ Manuel draft class. One of those.
A rough one.
Yeah, so maybe it's right in line with that. But now they're talking about Malik Willis. Obviously he had a nice showing at the combine. The guy's got an absolute cannon for an arm. And then he, showed out well in his pro day. But, he is not, by, I guess, NFL analysts, draft analyst standards, a surefire top 10 pick. But some of the mock drafts out there are trying to pencil him into that number 2 position. With this draft class not having a quarterback, I mean, what do you do? I think it's pretty well set that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going with Aiden Hutchinson. So let's take a look at the Detroit Lions, because that's where probably this draft is starting. They're going to be in need of a quarterback, probably not this year, but more than likely next year. What do you do if you're them? Do you take a flyer on Malik Willis, or do you just look at the shiny object and cast it away?
No, you got to cast it away. I think you got to build around your team. I think Jared Goff is fine. I think he's fine. I don't think he's the greatest. I don't think he's the worst. I think he's fine. I think he was able to show that, hey, you keep it simple for him. You play to his strengths. He can be effective. They won some ball games at the end that they probably wouldn't have won earlier in the year. And I think you can find a way to get games won if you surround him with a little more talent and play some good defense. I think, do I think he's going to win the NFC North with A-Rod still there? No, I don't. I don't think he's going to do that. But do I think they can get the 7th spot potentially? Yeah, sure. I think they'll be fighting for that 7th spot. But I think they got to continue to build around and expect their franchise quarterback to come the following year. Like we talked about, the next year's draft class quarterbacks are going to be what people desire. There should be a few generational talents there to change a franchise's trajectory. But I think if you're sitting here and you're just getting desperate and you get too desperate too early, then you miss out on potentially getting one next year, because you're not going to draft 2 top 5, top 10 quarterbacks back to back. I mean, the only team that did it was the Arizona Cardinals when they did it with Rosen, and then they
drafted Kyler the next year.
Kyler. But that was a different situation. You rarely ever hear about that happening. And I don't think you want to hear about that happening. Usually GMs and head coaches get fired in those situations. But I don't see them. But I think Pittsburgh, there's a lot of smoke about Tomlin watching Malik Willis everywhere he goes, But I think the kid from Cincinnati is going to get some hype and sneak into the first round.
Yeah. I mean, Desmond Ritter's a good player as well. It'd be interesting to see where these guys go. I mean, it seems like every year somebody gets obsessed with the quarterback and reaches on him. So not to say Malik Willis might not have a big future here, but he's going to need to probably develop some accuracy along the way. Who do you like in the draft? I mean, you've had an opportunity to sit down with Sauce now and with Roger McCreary. Who else is standing out to you in the draft?
Well, I think Stingley's gonna because people fall in love with his rookie season. I mean his freshman season. I mean, it was really outstanding. And I was talking to Shed about that yesterday, and he was like, "Man, off that tape, he would have been the number 1 pick that year."
Right.
But his tape since then, if you take that tape out of there, if you take his freshman year tape out of there, they do not align the same way. But I think people believe that he can continue to develop. There's been positive chatter out of LSU that he's the second best DB that was ever coached there, and Pat P being the first. And those are some strong words. And if he can live up to that height, and if some team is falling in love with him and just been quiet about it, I can see him going in the top 10. But I think if you talked about having J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain in this draft, I think you'd be talking about number 1 pick, a corner going number 1 for the first time probably ever, in recent memory. But they're not. But I think that's where this draft isn't as strong as previous drafts, because you don't have anybody outside of Aiden Hutchinson that's a surefire. Everybody was talking about Kayvon Thibodeau until they didn't. People have character concerns and durability concerns, and does he have more than 2 pass rush moves, et cetera, et cetera. And now he's falling out the top 5. Is what it appears. But I don't know.
Richard, you're a Pac-12 guy. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, I've watched him a couple times. He's stood out a little bit on tape, but do you like his game? Does it concern you that he left the combine early? Would you want someone like that on your team?
Nothing about the combine concerns me. I don't care about any of that because it really does not matter at all. I think that's one of those things that it's something to talk about in the offseason, but a guy running at the combine, not running at the combine, participating, not participating, like it's such a BS thing to do. You know what I mean? All these dudes are like, hey, I got to keep jumping through hoops. No, check my tape. I'll run for you at my pro day, and you can draft me or you can not draft me at the end of the day. You're not sitting here like, man, look, this guy, there are guys who had the most amazing combines in the history of football that did not turn out to be great football players. So if those correlated differently, I'd feel differently, but they don't. And so I don't feel any type of way about that. I think he's a good kid. He didn't flash enough for me. He didn't look dominant in any way. I think what's crazy is I think there might be 3 or 4 Georgia Bulldogs in the first round, and that would be pretty crazy.
I mean, Georgia, but there might be more than that, to be honest. I mean, they're talking about Trayvon Walker, the D end, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Lewis Seen. I mean, they've got. I mean, just on the defensive side of the ball, it's scary. And there's been talks about Jordan Davis climbing the draft ranks as well. I guess some of the concerns with him is his weight. He played at 360 at Georgia. They said that, even during the semifinal college football playoff, he only played something like 35% of the snaps or something like that. I mean, how much does a big guy like that with that can't stay on the field more than 2 plays at a time concern you?
Not at all. I mean, because you're talking about a D tackle, you know what I mean? The D tackles rotate. Now, Vita Vea is a perfect example of what they thought would be an issue for him. Very similar. And he's dominant, man. He's outstanding. You see, he just got his big payday. He's freaking unbelievable. He's usually 2 downs. At times they leave him on the field for the 3rd down, but they still have the weight concerns and all that. But at the end of the day, the man ran 4.7 at that weight. I think he's comfortable. He carries it well. He moves well. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to do what he's asked to do. Like, if you want him to be out there 50% of the snaps, there's not many D tackles in the league playing more than 60% of snaps right now. So to ask him to play another 5-10 snaps, I think the kid will be fine. Do I think they're going to find a spot for him to say, hey, there's not a lot of 360-pound guys rushing the passer. So you need him to stop the run. 1st and 2nd down, keep the D-line, O-lineman off the linebacker. He'll be fine in that role, and he'll be a destructive, dominant force and help a team win ball games. So I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I don't know. I don't think so.
How high do you think he could go that you would be comfortable with?
I think I'd be comfortable like right around 15.
15?
It would be perfect because he's going to be a 10-year player. He's going to be really good. He's going to be stout. He's going to help a defense tremendously. The linebackers are going to love him. But I think in the top 10, you got to have a pick that's impacting almost every play.
Richard, if there is one position in the NFL that seems to just dropped off a cliff, it's the running back position. And, I don't know if it's like the Saquon Barkley effect that you draft the running back high and it's going to shoot you in the foot later. But what are your thoughts on how, I guess, the running back position has been devalued specifically in the draft?
Well, I think the problem is it's been so many like low round and undrafted backs going out there and having a tremendous amount of success. That's been the problem. Guys have had tremendous amount of success and haven't been drafted very high. And I think that's been really cool, but it's hurt the market because the guys are like, hey, Kyle Shanahan find Raheem Mostert, undrafted, didn't get very many carries, has 200 and some yards and breaks the record in NFC Championship game. I think that changes the way people look at things because they're like, okay, we're spending a 1st-round draft pick on a guy who gets banged up. You got Zeke Elliott, who had a tremendous impact for Dallas and been great, been a Pro Bowler, really lived up to expectations, but they haven't won a championship. So it's like there are guys that the kid from Denver that's playing really well. I forget his name, but he had Javonte Williams. Yep, is having a really great start to his career, but wasn't a 1st-round pick, and nobody needed him to be, and he's having that kind of impact. So I don't think they feel like you need to reach for him.
Right. I mean, you look at this year's draft class. I mean, you got my Michigan State Spartan legend, Kenneth Walker III there. You got Breece Hall. You got Dalvin Cook's brother. There's some big names in the draft. And I think if this were 10 years prior, you'd see some of these guys, late first round, like we did with Melvin Gordon back in the day, you know, then 10 years ago. Like these guys kind of slot in that, but now they're being viewed as late second round picks. So it's just crazy to see how times have truly changed. It's
been a crazy year, but it's a passing league now. It's a passing league more than it has ever been. And that's what you're seeing in that way. And if they run in the ball, they feel like they can do it with a fifth rounder, an undrafted guy, a guy that they got out of free agency, a $4 million, $3 million back, and get the same production as a $10, $15 million back. All right, I mean, it's going to be an interesting year. We got more conversations to happen, especially after the draft, and we see how it all shakes out. It's going to be a fun draft season. You know, right now I'm excited to watch the Final Four. Stanford's girls are in it, and let's get us another national championship back to back. You know, Stanford women's basketball.
Richard, we'll close it. Stanford women's basketball. They're winning the women's championship. Who do you got winning the men's Final Four?
Well, it's going to look fixed, but I feel like Coach K is going out with a national championship, and that's, you know, a beautiful storybook ending.
I am mad at it. As long as Paolo Banchero's on my Detroit Pistons at the end of the day, I'll be thrilled.
Hey, you'll have to. I mean, you guys are starting to come around. Yeah.
I told
Cunningham, you did.
You know, your belated birthday presents in the mail. It's a Cade Cunningham jersey for you, Rich.
I love it.
Hey, this is a Richard Sherman podcast brought to you by SuperDraft Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Caesar Rewards. To all my PFF listeners, it's time to get hooked up when you play. Get a $10 bonus when you deposit $10 by using the code PFF at registration. Just download SuperDraft and start playing games like Super 15. Get your hands on some cash prizes, Caesar Rewards credits, and more. We're even hooking you up with free PFF Elite subscription when you sign up. Just download the SuperDraft app on Apple or Play Store. Use the code PFF when you create an account, deposit $10, and get a free PFF Elite subscription. The offer is only eligible for new accounts. SuperDraft paid fantasy contests are available in 34 states. Must be 18 or older to play. Paid contests in most states. Visit superdraft.io for all eligibility restrictions.
All right, welcome back. You know what time it is. It's that SuperDraft Super 15 contest. We're doing the over-unders. I'm going to make it quick. I got Luka Doncic over or under 29.5 against the Wizards. I got him over. You know, I just feel like he's a scorer and he's in a rhythm and he killed the Lakers, so I just got to give him what he deserves. Celtics, Jason Tatum over or under 28.5 versus the Pacers. He's too inconsistent for me. He has to be under that. I'm not believing that he's just going to have an offensive explosion, but he may. You know, it's a hit or miss sometimes with Jay Tatum. Karl Anthony Towns over or under 24.5 versus Nuggets. He's having a really good year, and I think, I mean, he's hitting the three ball very consistently, but I got him under that. He's going to have an off night tonight.
Richard, I like Luka, you know, 29.5 over the Wizards. The Wizards suck, but it's going to be one of those games where, again, the Mavs are going to be up so much. I think they're going to pull Luka out. So I'm going to put him at like 27. So we'll go under. Jason Tatum, the Boston Celtics have been like on a roll of late. I mean, I know they lost the last 2 games, but prior to that, they had claimed the #1 seed in the East, which I never thought they would. But Jason Tatum's a baller. I think he's going to go over 28.5. And then Karl Anthony Towns, I don't know, man. 24.5 seems like a lot of points, especially going against the Joker. I'm going to go under on that.
I love it. Obviously, I won last week, and everybody expect me to win this week. So follow my picks. Use the code PFF at registration for your first $5 contest. Free, no credit card required. Offer only eligible for new accounts. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Appreciate you guys tuning in. See you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Traffic.